Hello, my name is Dr. Kara Pickens, and today I am sharing with you a lesson about how having a positive perspective enables you to see the beauty in difficult places. I will be teaching this lesson through the story The Wonderful Towers of Watts by Patricia Zelver. Our story today takes place in a neighborhood outside of Los Angeles, California called Watts. I want to start by showing you some pictures of Watts, both from a long time ago and today. While you look at the pictures, I want you to say out loud the first words that come to mind when you see the pictures. The following are some pictures of Watts. This is an older picture of Watts on one of the major streets. This is a neighborhood of houses. And again, just say the first words that come to mind out loud as you look at these pictures. Another picture of some of the houses and businesses in one of the streets. Here's kind of an overview of the streets as well. So again, just say the first words that come to mind. So maybe this place, Watts, looks similar to where you live, or maybe it looks really different. I live in southern Indiana in the middle of a cornfield, so these pictures are very different from the place that I live, and that's okay. There are several things that stick out to me about the photographs. First of all, everything seems to almost be one color in the pictures. The streets are really flat, and the houses seem really plain. The neighborhood of Watts has changed a lot through its history, but for a long time, people have had a pretty negative view of Watts, and it has a pretty bad reputation. However, only focusing on the negative makes it really difficult to find happiness where we're at. Yes, there is always work to be done to make places we live become better, but if we lose our ability to see the positives, it makes it hard to have hope that things can change. That's why our perspective, the way we view the world, has a huge impact on whether we can bring beauty and change to our current circumstances. Being positive helps us find hope and happiness. By having a positive perspective, many people who have grown up in Watts have worked to see the beauty in the place that they live. Many have also brought beauty to where they live. What I didn't show you when I showed you pictures of Watts earlier is that most of the photographs of Watts include some towers. And next I want to show you some different pictures of Watts that I didn't show you earlier. So here's views of Watts that I didn't show you earlier. This shows the city of Watts from a different perspective. And in the front of the photograph, you can see the towers that are there. There's a closer view of the towers, and look how colorful they are and vibrant, really full of life. And I love this view. This is really different than the photos I showed you at the first. And this is just gorgeous. And today we're going to read a story written about the man who built these towers. And it's really going to show us the importance of seeing a positive perspective in the world that you live in, and how that positive perspective can bring about creativity and happiness and hope in a neighborhood. The Wonderful Towers of Watts by Patricia Zelver. A lot of people thought Old Sam was crazy. Old Sam's real name was Simon Radia. He was a small man who dressed in ragged overalls, a shirt with sleeves cut off, and a greasy hat. His arms and face were always covered with dust. Simone Radilia had come from Italy as a young man and spoke with a thick accent. He bought a little bungalow in Watts, a poor neighborhood that was half town, half country, outside the city limits of Los Angeles. He baked his bread in an outdoor oven he had just made, just like the oven his mother had used in the old country. Sometimes he was friendly and smiled at people with a gap-toothed smile. Other times his thoughts seemed far away and he would speak to no one. Old Sam worked as a laborer at Taylor's Tilery. Every evening he got off the streetcar carrying a large burlap sack of broken colored tiles. "What's Old Sam going to do with those?" people said. On weekends, old Sam walked down to the vacant lot by the railroad tracks and collected things that people thought were better thrown away. He brought home blue milk and magnesia bottles, broken bits of colored pottery, even pieces of broken mirrors. Sometimes he paid the neighborhood kids pennies or cookies to bring him empty green soda pop bottles and sacks of seashells. What does old Sam want with all that junk? People wondered. Old Sam spent most of his money on sacks of cement, sand, and steel. People could hear him working in his backyard behind a high fence. Old Sam, what's he up to? They said. One day, to the neighbors' amazement, something strange and beautiful rose up over the fence in Sam's backyard. It was a lacy web of steel, covered with a skin of concrete, in which old Sam had stuck glittering bits of tile, glass, mirrors, pottery, and seashells. Was old Sam building a fairy castle? A church spire? A tower on which he could climb to the sky? Everyone stared in wonder at old Sam's creation. Sam went on working. He worked all by himself for 33 years in all kinds of weather, high off the ground, with only a window washer's belt to keep him from falling. While he worked, he listened to opera music on an old gramophone. His favorite singer was Enrico Caruso. Old Sam could be heard singing along with him. The children of the neighborhood grew up and had their own children, who watched old Sam's towers soaring into the sky. Old Sam was getting older too, but he went on working, just as before. Sometimes old Sam invited the neighborhood children into his yard, which was now surrounded by a decorated wall. Inside, the children found a magical city with little streets, squares, and fountains. The walks and walls were covered with starfish patterns, heart shapes, and seashells. Colorful tiles decorated with peacocks and a golden bumblebee. Stuck into the cement were all sorts of curious objects which old Sam had collected over the years. A teapot spout, a cowboy boot, faucet handles, horseshoes, even Willowware plates. Newspaper reporters heard about the towers and came to see them and to talk to old Sam. What do they mean? They asked him. Old Sam just smiled. What are your plans? They said. Old Sam pointed to his head. Why did you do it? They said. I just felt like it, old Sam said. One day, when Sam was 80 years old, he gave the key to his house to a neighbor and went off to live near his relatives in another city. It was the last time he saw the towers. He never came back again. Los Angeles grew up around Watts. The city officials decided the towers must be dangerous. They could fall down in an earthquake or in a windstorm. After all, they said, old Sam was not an engineer. When some people who loved the towers heard this, they volunteered to make a wind load test to prove the towers were safe. The towers passed the test and were saved. Watts is still a poor part of Los Angeles, but no other place has the Watts Towers. Every year, people come from all over the world to marvel at old Sam's crazy dream. There are so many things I love about this story. I love that Sam used what he had available to him to make the towers. He didn't need a lot of money or any fancy equipment. In fact, some of the gorgeous towers were literally created out of junk. He just needed creativity and the courage to have a big dream. I also love that he kept his positive perspective, even when other people didn't understand his dream or they made fun of him for it. More than anything, I really connect with the idea of bringing beauty to places that are generally viewed as ugly. And I want to give you an example from my own life to illustrate this point. When I was really little, my family didn't have a lot, and I was often embarrassed about where I lived. It was hard to find beauty in it. But I always made an effort to create little corners in my life that had beauty. Maybe I'd arrange a few little treasured objects on a shelf in a way that reminded me of their beauty, or I would find a favorite tree that in my mind, make believe would become transformed into a magical world as I played. And I'd find little places to have hope and a positive perspective in the place that I lived. It takes a positive perspective to look at things that are very ordinary and believe that they can be extraordinary. When you create beauty out of everyday things, you bring joy not only to yourself, but also to others. How will you bring a positive perspective to your world in order to create beauty out of things that others don't view as beautiful? And that's really what I want you to think about as you work through this lesson. So today, I want you to do an activity that involves drawing. And I want you to draw a picture of a place in your life that's often viewed as plain or even unattractive. And it could be someplace in your town or your city. It could be in your school. It could be in your home, or it could be in some other place that you frequent. And your picture needs to show how you would make that place beautiful. And it might be that you'll do something kind like Sam did for his community or for people that live there and bring beauty to it that way. Or it might be that you create a work of art that could make that place beautiful in some way. Or it could be that you just really work on having a positive perspective and you draw this place in a really beautiful way, even though it's generally viewed as not beautiful. And that's another thing I really like about this story is the author and the illustrator chose to have really vibrant, gorgeous colors to depict this neighborhood of Watts. So you might think about how could you draw this place in a way that has beauty? Maybe you'll use bright colors to do that. After you draw your picture, you'll want you to write about this place, showing a positive perspective toward it. And if you're really younger, you might just label some of the parts about in your picture that show why they're beautiful. And if you're older, you might write a more detailed paragraph explaining how you're seeing beauty where you're at. And I want you, as you draw, to think about how you can be like Sam and make your world full of wonder or wonderful.